Welcome to the Inspired Riding Podcast. I'm your host, Beth Lauren Parrish. As a certified riding instructor, remote coach, and rapid transformational therapy practitioner, I'm here to remind you of your power. These podcasts are designed to help you step into a new reality and consider different perspectives. It's time to become the rider that your horse can trust. Hello there, Inspired Riders. I am so excited to have on the podcast yet again my amazing husband, Charlie Parrish. Charlie, thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here again.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about self-awareness and situational awareness while riding. Charlie, can you start out by describing a little bit about your history with horses?
Sure. I feel like I've been around horses my entire life. My mom rode actually as a cowboy when she was young. My sister's a cowboy. I grew up in a small rural town in southwest Texas where ranches surrounded the town. Pretty much everybody I knew how to ride. So I've been around horses since I was a tiny child. And then moving forward into my career as a stuntman, some of my first jobs were on westerns where, we were riding horses and driving wagons, and, I can't imagine my life without them.
And where was it that you grew up again?
I grew up in a small town called Alpine, Texas, which is in the Big Bend area of Texas. And it's out in a place where they don't measure ranches in acres, but in sections. And a section is 640 square acres or 1 square mile. And the average ranch was over 100 sections.
That's a lot of riding.
Yeah, when you get in the saddle on a ranch like that, you start riding before the sun comes up, and you may not get out of the saddle again until the sun is well down. So, yeah, it's a different kind of riding.
Did you ever have lessons, or they just threw you up there?
No, they put me on a horse, pointed me in a direction, said the cows are that way, go get them. So, at the end of an 8 or 10 hour day, I had learned everything I needed to know about riding from the horse I was sitting on.
I love that so much. And what were some of the westerns that you worked on? I'm sure people would love to know.
The biggest one, the one that most people would recognize, and it was the first big film I got to work on, was Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. I spent 4.5 months in Santa Fe, New Mexico, riding and learning all aspects of the film business from some of the best people in the film business. I mean, we had Larry Kasdan as a director, Owen Roisman as a director of photography, Kevin Costner, Dennis Quaid, Isabella Rossellini. It was a kind of a dream come true for a film person.
And what were the horses like on that movie set?
So we had some fantastic horses and great wranglers, and so many of them, because we had stagecoaches and wagons and carts, as well as cowboys come ripping, roaring into Dodge City, Kansas, shooting guns. So the horses were really well trained and well adapted to the film business, which is a different kind of thing for horses, where a typical horse might have to, learn the ins and outs of dressage and being in those sorts of competitions, or a cow horse that has to learn about roping and cattle and brush. Movie horses have to be prepared for anything, gunfire, cars going by, cameras going right past or right up to the horse. They're a completely different mindset when it comes to equines.
And did you like the way they were cared for on this movie?
I really did, mainly because my sister was one of the wranglers on the movie, and I really trust her as a horse professional. And they came at it from the idea that they're not just livestock, they're partners in what the job is. And you have to take care of them because they're taking care of you. The riding trials to get people that were qualified to ride to be in the scenes were extensive, because you can't put just anybody on a horse and expect them to look like they know what they're doing. And something like Wyatt Earp, you really want everybody to look like they know what they're doing.
Can you describe the riding trials? I feel like I remember a funny story about that.
Well, we went through thousands of people that said, oh yeah, I know how to ride. And it got so frustrating that instead of actually putting them on a horse to ride, we'd hand them a halter and go get me the sorrel horse. And if they looked at you with a question, you take the halter away from them, send it away, and then hand the halter to somebody else and say, go get me the Appaloosa. And finally, when we found somebody that knew the difference and could go and get the horse, we'd make them saddle the horse. Because most of the times we find if a person really knows how to saddle a horse, chances are they know how to ride.
That's brilliant. I love that you broke it down that way to help whittle out the people who knew what they were doing. That's so smart.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the differences between people who really know how to ride and really know how to be around horses versus people who think they know how to ride and think they know how to be around horses.
So, for those who know how to ride, there's always an element of working on making sure you stay safe. So let's start with a little bit about your ideas, your unique thoughts about staying safe as possible.
Well, I come from safety from a very different perspective than most horse folks. I'm a martial artist of almost 40 years of experience. I've been a bodyguard, I've been a soldier, I've been a bouncer, I've been a stuntman. So safety has always been a key to everything that I do. And I've taught defensive tactics to police and military contractors. I've taught self-defense for women. And it's all about awareness. Awareness is the very first tool in your tool belt. And there are two types of awareness that I break down. The first one is self-awareness. Knowing what your skills are, what your limitations are, and being honest with yourself so that you can work through those things and work around your shortcomings and find ways to make them strengths. You have to be honest with yourself. And you are the only one who can be truly honest with yourself about, am I comfortable? Am I skilled enough? Do I have the tools I need to get this done the right way? After that, then it becomes about the situation you're in. Are you on your home turf? Are you in the arena? Are you on the trail? Are you out on a ranch with not a fence in sight? What is your situation? And being present in the moment so that you see that situation as it changes, as things happen, as threats pop up, be it, that horribly scary shopping bag that blows across the trail, or that shadow that looks different at 6 p.m. than it did at 6 a.m. when you rode past the exact same bush. Or something as scary as coyotes or a mountain lion or a vicious dog or a crazy drug-addicted homeless person popping out on a trail in Southern California like we've had happen. The more present you are in the moment, the further your awareness extends, the more warning you have when those things are coming.
So speaking of all those situations, do you want to pick one and give an example of tips of how to help keep yourself safe?
The first thing is to trust your intuition more than anything else. We all have that voice in our head that sometimes whispers, sometimes screams, hey, something's not right. You've got to train yourself to listen to that voice first. And that's part of your situational awareness as well. What is your intuition telling you? The more time you can give yourself to respond to a threat, the better you're going to be. Take a dog, for example. Dogs are a really weird threat to be dealing with from horseback because of the way they attack. Part of it, you got to know what kind of dog you're dealing with. Are they heelers? Are they like a mastiff that's going to come straight in? What is their intent? Are they threatening? Are they going to attack you? And you can't necessarily turn your horse and run from a dog because some dogs are going to be faster than your horse. And certainly some dogs are going to be faster than you're going to want to ride in some of those situations. So you start thinking about the other tools you can bring along with you. My first suggestion, if you're dealing with a dog, is get off the horse. If you're not going to outrun the dog, get off the horse. Because you'll have a better chance of defending that horse against the dog when you're on the ground than you will be by trying to reach it from the saddle, right? That's going to set you in a position where if a dog charges your horse and your horse bucks and you're leaning down trying to get to the dog, now you're on the ground anyway, right? But now you're on the ground without the advantage of being on your feet necessarily. Other things, specifically for dogs, if you were a jogger, maybe you could carry pepper spray or pepper foam, and those sorts of things could deter a dog. But you don't want to do that around a horse because the horse is going to be affected by it as well. So one thing that I suggest is maybe carrying a blank firing starter pistol. But your horse needs to know about it. It's not something you can spring on your horse because horses don't like surprises like that either. The other thing is dressage whip, something that gives you standoff distance. A lead rope. I'm not about hurting another animal, but if that animal is trying to hurt me or the other animals in my care, then they stepped into the wrong place, and I don't mind putting a little pain in the mix if that's what it's going to take to keep us all safe. But then when the threat is something different, like a human, like the trails that we used to ride in Southern California, where you might have a crazy homeless person run out of the bushes at you, your horse can outrun that crazy homeless person. Why stay in a fight when you can outrun it? Like Mr. Miyagi said, best way to win a fight, no be there. But I also help teach police, mounted police, and one of the things that everybody forgets is you've got 1,500 pounds of muscle underneath you. If you can't run away, I guarantee you can run through. Let the horse's muscle do the work.
And what about also turning them and bumping into them, things like that?
Absolutely. It depends on how well your horse is trained. And a lot of times people forget that dressage was designed for military maneuvers on horseback. So side passes and turn on the forehand, all of those things. Spanish walk. Spanish walk was designed to strike forward into an enemy that was in front of you. All of those maneuvers, use them to your advantage. If the person is coming around, to your stirrup side, do a turn on the haunches. Get the horse's back end into them. Let the horse push them out of the way, and then leave. Don't stay there. The best way to keep yourself safe is to get yourself to safety.
Oh yeah, turn on the forehand brings the hind end around.
Right.
And then turn on the haunches brings the front end around. Just as a clarification, but no, I totally understand what you're saying. Get the big part of the horse towards the human.
Right. Don't let them keep them away from the horse's head. Don't let them grab the bridle. Don't let them grab onto the horse. Get the big parts in front of them. Get the shoulders into them. Get the haunches into them. Get your feet into their face. But also don't let them grab onto you, because that's most of the time that's their goal, is to get you. So, use the horse.
Yeah, that's where your intuition will help. If they're starting to get close, then you do your best to hightail it out of there.
Yeah, and if you see them coming down the trail, just go somewhere else.
I like it. Thank you for that, Charles.
Of course.
So, being a Reiki master, which obviously is a lot of energy work and being aware of yourself, what are some tools you can use on an energetic level to help keep your spirit safe in a sense? So,
yeah, that is part of self-awareness, and also part of trusting your intuition is knowing what your energy is doing and sensing what your horse's energy is. A great example of use of Reiki in my life, I've been on ranches where we might be gathering cattle for 4 days. And like I said, these pastures are huge. You're in the saddle for 9, 10, 12 hours. And that's exhausting to the horse as well. And most of the time, they'll design it so that each person has 2 or 3 horses so they can alternate day by day. A lot of times when I would go and help, I would get one horse. And I'd use the same horse day after day. So what I would do is I would check in with that horse in the morning and do 10 minutes of Reiki before I saddled them, just to see where they were at and also give them a boost, because I knew what kind of day we were going to have. And it was kind of about, letting them eat their energetic Wheaties, get them prepped for all the work that we were going to do. And then at the end of the day, do the same thing again, take off the saddle and just give them some Reiki as kind of a thank you, and reinvigorate that energy field and help them heal, because I knew the next day was going to be hard too. And what was very interesting is when most people would have to go in and chase their horse around to get it, I would walk to the corral and my horse would come right up to me. Like, okay, I'm ready. And would stand there patiently while I did Reiki, and we'd saddle up and go. But you can also use your energy as an early warning system. You may not know it, but you have an innate sense of the feeling of energy, good and bad. So you can tell when your horse is not feeling 100% if you listen, if you let your energy do the communicating. Then it's just a matter of going, okay, how can I help? What can I do to assist you? Is there something that I need to be doing, or is this something that you're going to handle on your own? And you'll be amazed at what answers you get. Same way, dealing with threats, most of the time you can sense whether a dog is going to attack. You can sense whether a human has bad intentions. You just got to learn to trust those senses.
So let's talk a little bit more about your energy field and being able to sense these things. Are there specific ways that you help to heighten and become more aware of your energy field?
The first thing I do is get connected with my breath. Just get connected with your breath, get quiet, let all of the angers and frustrations outside of your immediate circumstances just go away. Especially with horse time. Horse time, I don't need to be worried about, my electric bill. I don't need to worry about, politics. None of that matters. It's time to get quiet, take a deep breath, feel into my heart, let my heart center swell, feel into my horse's heart, see where they're at, see if we can get those two energy fields in sync. And there are times that I have to lean heavily on my horse for their energy to get mine balanced. And there are times when my horse has to lean on me. That's part of that relationship that we want to build. That's how you create that bond and that trust. When your horse knows that, hey, if I don't have it today, I can lean on my human and they will help me bring myself back into, some form of positive state.
So when you're breathing and getting yourself calm, do you also do visualizations?
I do. I use so many different tools. Sometimes I use a lot of qigong exercises dealing with the elements, earth, air, fire, water, depending on what I need to do. Sometimes I just picture the orb of light that comes from, my heart, the light that comes from my horse's heart. Sometimes it's just a matter of listening to my breath, listening to the wind. Sometimes I think of my breath as the tides of the ocean and listening to that ebb and flow, and it just brings everything down to a more calm place. I know you've talked about it before. Sometimes I use the water meditation to increase my flexibility and get my mind and my body more fluid. So it's situational.
That's beautiful. So then when you become that aware, you can literally feel the disturbance in the force when something's not quite right around your energy field, right?
Absolutely. And in situational awareness, in the more combative side of my life, we talk about baselines and anomalies, but it really applies here too. Once you can get yourself to a stable baseline where everything is calm, like the calm surface of a lake, then you'll feel when a pebble drops into the lake, you'll feel those ripples. And you'll be better able to triangulate where those ripples are. What caused it? Where did that pebble come from? In the self-defense arena, you look at the baseline of everybody in the room, and there'll be a general, energy that everybody is in. Think of a line in a bank. Everybody's standing there bored, kind of in their own space, checking their phone. Then you see an anomaly of somebody with their head up and looking around and kind of twitchy. Well, that person's nervous. Maybe ask why they're nervous. Start paying attention to what they're about to do. Same thing around horses. You look at the baseline of the barn, see where everybody's at. And if everybody's calm and then one horse is not, maybe check in on that horse and see what's going on. Is there something wrong with them physically? Do they have a hornet's nest in their stall? What's going on? And that is a blanket tool that you can use everywhere. What's the baseline? Then look for anything outside the baseline.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So we talked about how to keep your body safe, how to be more aware of your energy and keep your spirit safe and happy, especially when you're giving and receiving the Reiki, because that's just what happens. You receive it as you're giving it. And it's such a beautiful, ebb and flow, yin and yang, giving and receiving. I always imagine kind of like an infinity sign going back and forth between the horse and you. So with all that, how do you keep your mind feeling safe and secure? What are some thoughts that you suggest people grab a hold of rather than focusing on the what if bad scenarios happen? Because you do want to be able to, of course, know what to do, but you don't want to get stuck in that fear mode, right?
Absolutely. But I come at it from a different approach. For me, I look at the worst case scenario and what if. And then I go, okay, here are the tools that I have at my disposal. If I fall off this horse, I know how to land. If something comes up, I have these tools that I can use. And then I just focus on those tools and less on the situation. I trust that I have in my back pocket everything that I need to deal with whatever situation. And then once I've made that decision, I put it out of my head. And then I just focus on what's happening in this moment. And I try to approach it with gratitude. In this moment, I am with a horse. That's fantastic. I don't have to deal with people. I don't have to deal with traffic. I don't have to deal with anything other than spending time with a creature that most people don't get to spend time with. I mean, being around horses is just awesome. And it's rarer than most people think. I mean, as horse people, we kind of take it for granted. And it's a shame because most people don't have that advantage of getting to be with horses all the time. So for me, I would rather focus on that, the gratitude and the joy aspect of it. But I can do that because I know in the back of my head that I have the tools I need should something go wrong. And I trust my horse.
That's perfect. So you could literally just say, I trust my horse and I trust myself and I know I have the skills I need.
Absolutely.
Those would be 3 good phrases to keep in mind, right?
Absolutely.
So you touched upon the idea of you know what to do when to fall to keep yourself safe. This is a big hot topic, especially for a lot of riders that are getting older and don't quote unquote bounce as well as we used to. What are some tips that you like to suggest to help keep people safe when they have those unexpected dismounts?
Okay, again, I come at this from a very different place. I'm a 5th degree black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is the root art that things like Judo and Aikido have come from. So we fall a lot. It's part and parcel to everything we do. And to fall properly means to go against what most people think they need to do. Like most people, when they fall, they want to put their hands out. And that's a horrible idea. Because when you extend something out from your body, that's the first thing that's going to hit the ground, and the amount of force that's coming down could cause an injury. For us, the more of our body that can hit the ground at the same time, the more dispersed the force of that impact is. So it kind of goes against common sense, but for me, coming off a horse, I want the most amount of my body to hit the ground at the same time as possible. But that takes training and practice. Training and practice that most people are not going to go out and get. So my next suggestion kind of takes a page out of modern dance, believe it or not. Alvin Ailey is great at this. If you watch some of the routines from the American Ballet Theater, they do a thing where they roll down to the ground. So instead of hitting the ground rigid, hit the ground with suppleness and allow the momentum of the fall to roll you out of the way. So instead of hitting with just your feet, you might hit with your feet and then allow your knees to sag, your hips to sag, and all of your body to lay out. And specifically lay out in a direction away from the direction of the horse's travel, so that you don't end up under the horse's hooves. So great places to see examples of that. Like I said, the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, and parkour. Parkour artists, they jump from immense heights and land, and they do almost like a parachute fall where they land and roll, but they allow the momentum to continue. It's when you try to brace and stop the momentum that your body ends up injured. The more supple you can be, the safer you will be. Now, that's harder as you get older. I get that. I'm almost 55. The parts don't move as well as they did when I was 20. So things that I do, I really endeavor to work on my flexibility. And something I suggest to people a lot more recently is the work of a guy named Ben Greenfield, known on the internet as Knees Over Toes Guy. He has a protocol for rebuilding the musculature around the knees to strengthen and create stability. And he comes from a place where, he had to have both his knees replaced by the time he was a senior in high school. And now he teaches professional basketball players how to slam dunk a basketball because he was able to rehab his knees through exercise.
I really love this guy's protocol because I've only just started the first part, which is literally walking backwards 10 minutes a day 3 times a week. And I just do it on the treadmill at 1 mile per hour. And I just turn myself around, listen to an Audible book, and then I just march backwards. And my knees are feeling so much better. And if you guys didn't know, I've had extensive surgery on my knee and my leg. I have a 9-inch plate in my left leg for my femur break, and then my knee had the MCL and ACL damage, so I have an anchor and screw in there. So, trying to get that knee to feel better has been an ongoing thing, and this has been absolutely amazing, and it's so simple. So that's the first step. So once I've gotten past that, then I'm going to step it up literally and do some more. But I'll be sure to share the info on that guy in the show notes for you. So go ahead and continue with that, Terry.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be something that simple, walking backwards, because it reminds the muscles of your leg how they need to function. So being safe from a fall is kind of a multi-layered approach. First, work on your flexibility. Yoga, Pilates, knees over toes guy, any of those things, Tai Chi, Qigong, they're amazing for creating that elasticity to the muscles and tendons. Then take the time to learn how your body reacts and get some training. Even if it's just watching parkour videos on YouTube and then going out and practicing. Just get your body used to rolling to the ground. Because we don't rise to the level of our training, we sink to the level of our practice. So if you want to land safely, you have to practice landing safely. Now, I don't suggest you practice by coming off a horse, but find yourself some gymnastic pads or go to a gym that has a padded floor and learn to go from standing to being prone on the ground in as smooth a way as possible, because your body can only do those things it has been taught how to do.
I do remember watching the parkour videos one night with you, and the next day I was riding Indy and he was especially squirrely, and I felt like there was a chance I could have stayed on him, but after visualizing how softly these guys landed on cement, I just went ahead and just relaxed everything in my body and just rolled off of him. And I laid there and I almost laughed to myself like, wow, I really could have hurt myself, but I did okay. And that was like the first time I'd ever fallen without injuring myself. And I thought that was huge. So if I had practiced that more, I'm sure I wouldn't have had as many falls with injuries as I have. But, there was that really nice time. So I do have to remember to hold on to that.
And you've touched on two very important things. One is relaxing. Mm-hmm. Most people, when they fall, relaxing is the last thing that goes through their head. But again, the more you practice, the more relaxed you're going to become because it's familiar. We're comfortable with things that we're familiar with. And that's what practice gives you, is that familiarity. But the other thing, and something you're particularly gifted at, is that idea of a mental rehearsal. Times that you can't actually get out and train, if you spend that same amount of time in your head training those things, your mind doesn't know the difference between something that's actually done and something you've imagined completely. So if you can, go to a gym and practice. If you can't, go to your mental gym and practice.
And I would suggest practice in real life and practice in your mind, and then you got all bases covered.
Absolutely. And the more full, the more complete you can make that experience, so that you remember the smell, the feeling of the ground under your feet, the temperature, the color of the walls. All of those things will create a complete visceral memory that your body will continually access.
And I do want to add something that just came streaming in. The idea of falling is so scary for people. So what I want to suggest is, when you are doing these mental rehearsals, almost imagine it as if you're like a cartoon character, and it gets to be like something really silly and fun, and like you shake it off like a horse shakes off after they've had a nice roll. Like, oh, that was no big deal. And I want you to like step into that possibility that you can have a fall and still be totally fine.
Yeah, a funny example that just popped up in my memory. I was snowboarding, and I'm not a great snowboarder. It was probably only my second time snowboarding, and I missed the turn for snowboards and went down the ski side of the slope, which had these things called moguls, which are like little bumps on the ski slope. And snowboards and moguls do not get along.
Oh, no.
And I tried to stop my snowboard and hit a mogul and launched off the mountain. And I launched straight out from the mountain, so I'm getting farther and farther away from the ground at first, and then rapidly getting close to the ground again. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is how I cash in. But I realized I had so much time to think that maybe I should create a plan for not dying. And I decided I was going to throw a shoulder roll at the last moment, right before I hit the ground. And I rolled, and I came perfectly up on my snowboard, without a scratch, without a bump, without a bruise. Just because my mind had time to figure it out. And the more you practice, the more your brain will have that time. It contracts in those instances, or expands in those instances where, something that seemed like it took forever was actually just a few seconds. But my brain, because it was familiar with being in the air, said, we've got this.
I'm very glad you decided to make a different decision.
Absolutely. Yeah, one other thing about falling. We jokingly call it in stunts rapid deceleration trauma. It's when you stiffen with the impact that you get hurt. The more supple you are, the less it's going to affect you.
I suppose you could also use breath work for it as well, right?
Absolutely. If you hold your breath and get hit, that's going to hurt. If you allow yourself to breathe, and in the martial arts, we expel the breath forcibly when we hit, so that we're contracting the abdominals and forcing that air out instead of having that air forced out of us.
Yes, because I do remember a time that I came off and it knocked the wind out of me, and my helmet was on sideways, and I'm staggering around, and I just started making this noise like, ah! And I asked my husband, like, Charlie, can I have some water? And then I did it again. Oh, did I get my water yet? I was like so out of it. We always joke about that whenever I'm asking for water. But I'm just very grateful that I was okay. That was when I was, again, going against my intuition and helping a lady start her gaited horses that had never been ridden. And one of them did really well. The other one was just so skittish and just never really could settle in a way that I could feel safe. So that was the one I kept coming off of. And in any case, so it's just a really beautiful reminder. If your gut is telling you don't do it, you really need to listen. Yep.
And breath is a great indicator of that too. Think about it, when you're calm, when you're comfortable, when you're in that perfect space, your breath comes easy and rhythmic and effortless. And when you start getting tense, your breath starts getting tense. It starts getting tight. It starts getting faster. But there's a key in that. So when you find yourself getting tense and tight and your breath getting tense and tight and rapid, that's when you take the time to slow your breath back down. Because as your breath is a response to your tension will also respond to your breath. So slow your breathing down. Get yourself centered again. And your body will respond by releasing all that tension and relaxing again.
And my favorite is to do a horse sigh.
Absolutely.
Yep. That one really helps. And then the horse often does it too, and then you can both relax more together. So, Charlie, is there anything else that you wanted to share that I did not ask you?
Wow. I'm sure there's hundreds of hours that we could spend talking about aspects of safety. But it really does just come down to trust your intuition and trust your horse. Those are the two most important things in riding, in my opinion. And a lot of that is about building that trust. Be the rider that your horse trusts, so that your horse can be the horse that you trust.
I love it. And that's what inspired riding's all about.
Absolutely.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much for chatting with me. And I know all of the other inspired riders will love to hear these golden nuggets from you. So I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me again. And I just got to say, may the horse be with you always.
May the horse be with you always. Thank you so much for listening. And if you'd like to reach out, you can check out the website inspiredriding.com, and you'll see the free resources. And I hope you'll sign up for the free mini course, Developing a Powerful Bond with Your Horse. And I know your horse will thank you. Thanks again, and may the horse be with you always.